And thank you very, very much, team, for allowing me just to come and share a little bit about Family First. I see Pastor Beryl there from Avondale Christian Centre. Blessings, brother. And to all of those who I've met in the past, haven't got time to go around and say hello to everybody. But yeah, how did I get involved in Family First? As you know, Family First is not a political party. It started off with just one guy 15 years ago by the name of Bob McCoskrie, and he just didn't like the way things were going, so he decided to speak up. And 15 years later, there's a team of 6, totally funded by the community, not for profit, no government funding, no overseas funding, just walking in obedience, and then God just blessing the ministry. It's not Christian as per se, but between you and I, every member on the board is Christian and all our staff are Christian. So it goes without saying, our values are really, really solid. So I first got involved with Family First probably about 5 or 6 years ago now, and I was just on their board as a Pacific member there giving input. And about 3 years ago, Bob asked me to come out of the grandstand from cheering on the team and get on the field and make some tackles. And so for the last 3 years, my role has been getting into the Pacific Island churches and Pacific Island community and just waking them up to some of these issues, because we're so sort of far behind the start line with a lot of these things. And one of the reasons is that for Pacific Islanders, being where we are demographically, we're just busy trying to put food on the table, get our kids into school, put $10 gas in the car tank so that we can work through the week. And, while they're doing all this stuff, I come along saying, so what's your view on abortion? And these families look at me, Nick, are you for real? So it's been a 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. But I love the fact that Family First is all about solid families, solid marriages, and just honouring people's life from conception right through to natural death. That's got us into trouble. As some of you would know, that some people don't agree with our view on the nuclear family, and we see that as biblical. They see that the best way to raise a child is with a mum and a dad, and there's some people that don't agree with that. So we've been taken to court, and the 3rd time we're in court now in the Supreme Court, and 5 judges are trying to decide on whether we're breaching the laws or whether we're not. And the second thing they don't agree with us is on our stand on marriage, that we believe marriage is between a male and a female, man and a woman. The world doesn't seem to think that's good anymore, so they're taking us to court over that as well. So that's the stance of Family First. We're like the watchdog. We have a radar for things that are coming in from overseas, and when we see these things, we will alert churches, we will alert the community, we'll alert anyone that will listen about, these are the dangers of what this new policy or what this new law, whatever it is that we think is going to damage the unity of the family. We will just do a song and dance, literally, and try and wake people up to it. Unfortunately, from a perspective, again, from my Pacific perspective, we tend to really worship the ground that the government walks on. It's, I think, something to do with the year of the election. They feed our kids at school, and they start tinkering with the benefits in that year as well. And of course, everyone goes, "Oh, they're really, really good," but they don't actually see while they're giving in this hand, they're taking away with the other. And that's part of my role, is to wake Pacific up to what's going on. So that's really is Family First in a nutshell. We're led by an awesome, bold man, Bob McCoskrie, as you know, and he's done it hard for a long, long time. He tries to stay focused on the issues, and part of my role is to do some of the heavy lifting on the stuff that A, will distract him, or B, he doesn't want to do. And so I don't have a problem with that. That's part of my role, is to help him in that, and then focus on the Pacific. If I had any concerns in relation to where Family First is going, we're flying right in the face of the opposition to what we would call human rights. And that's the big buzzword that's out there at the moment, that's justifying a lot of these particular laws that are coming in, as human rights. We know it better in Galatians 5 as human desires. And we all know that in Galatians 5, there's not one good thing about human nature, about the flesh. And so, as you'll see with a lot of these laws that are coming in, it's what the flesh wants. For example, the same-sex marriage, you got the genderless birth certificates now. We've got this ban on gender therapy. And so there's a whole lot of sexual stuff that's coming up. And, I don't want to mince words, because at the end of the day, Pacifically correct, which is my particular forte. Pacific Islanders, we just like the truth hard right between the eyes. So I have to talk straight, and I hope you don't mind if I just talk straight to you tonight. It's all about the truth. And for me, there's a huge focus on just trying to guide people into holiness. And I know it's not a fashionable word these days, holiness, being set aside for God's purpose. But I think that's my measure. And I'll live and die on trying to bring people to that point where they understand what holiness means, that acknowledge the fact that there is a God, that he has a master plan, and without him, you're lost and blind. And I'll finish on this point and then open it up for whatever we want to do after that, is the fact that we have some members in Parliament, like us, were lost and were deceived, and we're led by our human desires, and they are now in positions of power, making decisions and taking us down a slippery slope. And that's just the truth of it all, because when you're lost and being deceived, you don't know that what you're doing is wrong. So it's one of those things where we have to stand and say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. But at the same time, not walk that road and do the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego thing and saying, okay, whatever you say, we get that, but we will not bow. And I think that's my role amongst Pacific, is because we have the latest version of the gospel, being one of the latest people groups to get the gospel, we've got the freshest version. And when the missionaries arrived in Samoa, in particular my homeland, Samoa, 200 years ago, they told us, hey, if you want to be righteous, go put some clothes on. We're having to say that to the Europeans now. So it's important that we come back and we hold on to those values that the missionaries brought to us, which changed our lives. We already had, I think, 30 gods in Samoa until the missionaries arrived. Says, no, God of Israel, Jesus Christ, he's the God. And the king of Samoa back in the 1800s says, right, we're going to now merge the gospel into our culture. So for the last 200 years, the Samoan culture now is biblically based. And if people try to remove the Bible from our culture, well, that's a racist move, which we can always play the race card. So I'm just keeping that up my sleeve at the moment. But yeah, that's the state of the play team. We've got a wonderful team doing lots of stuff. We're hard up against it because we're fighting not only government and media and, the majority of the people in the world who want human rights, whatever that means and whatever that entails. It's important for us to stay strong and do it in a gentle way, be compassionate and kind as we do it, but doing it all the same and speaking the truth, stiffening the spines of others, hoping that the pastors of churches will catch on and they will teach their, the sheep what it is and how they should be responding to some of the stuff that's coming through. Because I know with the Pacific Island churches, having done some stuff with them now for the last couple of years, they had no idea about how the enemy has been using, certain leaders to bring his agenda in on this nation of New Zealand. So their team, that's the straight talk. I didn't really want to mince words. I was just letting you know where I stand, how I see it. And, when I get out there into the rest of the world and I let the light shine, sometimes darkness doesn't like it. They'll attack back, but I just have to be in the nicest way possible, gentle and respond. Well, the first one is solid marriages. I'm finding that marriages are really under strain at the moment, and for a variety of reasons. I mean, I don't have to tell you, you all know, you might have your own or, your children or grandchildren are all struggling in their marriages. And that's because there's a lot of things pressuring those things. And if marriages fall apart, families fall apart, obviously. So that's the first thing I think we need to pray for the marriages. Secondly, we want to pray for parenting, is that it's the duty of parents to raise kids in the biblical values. And unfortunately, but sometimes parents get too busy or they just don't know what the truth is, and they start guiding their kids down a particular road, and the kids are totally lost. So I'd like to see that we could pray for solid families. Third point so let me just go back to points that I sent to Andrew, because there's so many points that I have. I just chose 4 easy ones that we could stick to. So I'm just putting my glasses on. Yep, and I want to pray for the churches. Being able to move around and speak in churches over the last couple of years, I've noticed that the churches are divided, even with the mandates and stuff right now, where I spoke at a church in South, which they've done a fantastic job of keeping everybody happy. They allowed people to come into the church and allow people to use the other hall, and just the door open, and there I was speaking to both groups. But even the mandates, the vaxxed and unvaxxed, is starting to cause division in the church too. So I'd really like to pray for pastors and church leaders as they navigate this whole thing. I think that's really important. And the last point that I wanted to pray for was the unsaved. So I honestly believe the only reason we haven't had the rapture, and the only reason Jesus hasn't come back yet, is because he's giving us time to reach our lost friends and family. So gone are the days where we have to reach out to China or India and those places. All we have to do now is reach across the fence to our neighbors. With all the lockdowns and everything else, was really important. That was my mission field, was the people I met in the dairy, or the people I had next door to me. I think it's important now that we look to who our unsaved family and friends are. That's our mission field until we all meet in the heavens, meet up in the sky. So let's just pray that we have opportunities. All of us have opportunities to just pass on our words of encouragement, and we just have to sow the seeds. We don't have to convince them. As the Bible says, the Holy Spirit is the only one who can cause the scales to fall from the eyes. So we just have to sow the seeds, and wherever they fall, they fall. But come the white throne judgment, when your friends and family are being judged and they look across, you can actually look them in the eye and says, this is what I was trying to tell you, right? So let me just elaborate on that. Sorry, before going to prayer, just so I can really make a point. When I was in the police, I was running some projects, and a very wealthy gentleman was giving me money on a regular basis, him and his father-in-law, and it was to help the police projects go forward. So long story short, I never shared the gospel with him, because I didn't want him to turn the money off by saying, oh, you're one of those freaks. Okay, no more money for you. So I never shared the gospel with him until one particular morning. About 1 a.m, I woke up in a cold sweat, and I had this dream. And the dream was the escalators, like they used to do in farmers, where one's coming down and one's going up. And coming down was this friend of mine in my dream with a demon on either side of his shoulders. And going up was me with an angel either side of mine. And as our eyes met right in the center, my friend looks across at me and says, Nick, did you know anything about this? And I just woke up in a cold sweat thinking, oh my goodness. So that was about 1 or 2 in the morning. At about 5 or 6 in the morning, just a couple of hours later, his daughter rang me to say that my friend Phil was on his launch at the back of Waiheke. He had a heart attack, and this chopper was taking him across to Auckland Hospital. Well, I just freaked out. I got up immediately, had a shower, put my police uniform on, because that gets you into hospitals when it's shut, right? I went into his bedroom, and he was shocked to see me there, because he told his daughter, don't tell anybody. And I said to him, Phil, if you were to die today, we would just be in eternity. I did all those things that you meant to say, and basically led him to the Lord. And within 2 weeks of him, he prayed that prayer on his deathbed, supposedly, but within 2 weeks, we were standing together side by side, singing at Promise Keepers. So that really shook me up. And I don't ever want anybody to be able to see me on that day when we're in the sky saying, bro, you knew all about this good news and you didn't say a word. So that's the reason why I think for us, friends and family, the unsaved, we need to sow some seeds. Thank you.